everyone. Happy Tuesday. Today this week I filmed a bit later again because of life activities. I had traveled home and we got back and all that is involved with travel. In Kenya, though I work in the city, I come from a town called Meru. So it's like a 5 hour, depending on your speed. It's like a 4 to 5 hour drive from the city. So today's reflection is about Joseph, and it's just a reflection of encouragement, but also of guidance that I've been receiving from God. And I don't know why, but I resonate so much with Joseph. I have yet to understand why, because our stories I don't think are so similar. I've had a really good upbringing. I've not gone through, that those kind of challenges as I've been growing up. But something about how he conducts himself rings, gives me so much insight. It comes to me with a lot of power as opposed to reading other people's stories. Another person whose story rings true to me or comes with so much power is Daniel. I'm also again yet to find out why. Maybe when we're having these conversations when I'm 90, we'll have more insight. Hindsight is always 2020. But today's reflection goes actually it's not to 40, it's 36, Genesis 36 to the end, because the end is where Joseph dies and asks that when the Israelites leave Egypt, please carry my bones, with you. So he had foresight to know that the Israelites would leave Egypt. Is that foresight or is that a prophetic word? Could be. So the thing that I wanted us to reflect on most in Joseph's journey is that first, God was with him all through. So the us as believers, and I remember even in when God was now starting to work with Joshua personally, he told him that I will never leave you nor forsake you. And that rings true for every believer. Once you give your life to Christ, you inherit you inherit everything that is in the kingdom of God. Whether you're using it or not is a question of maturity. So the more you mature, the more you use, and the more you know, the more you use. But it's not that when you mature is when you get it. It's only that when you know what you have is when you use what you have. So for instance, your parents could have left you an inheritance of like 30 billion. But only when you know you have that inheritance do you go and cash the check. But if you don't know, you don't use it. But that doesn't mean that you don't have it, right? So God is with us throughout. Our environment, our upbringing, our talent, our position, whatever we are, is not what warrants what we have from God. When we accepted Christ, He gave us everything. Now, when we acknowledge God, and you remember that Joseph, from when he was a young boy, he started seeing visions of, the future, but he didn't quite understand everything as God meant it, but he understood the essence of it, that he would be a great man. Now, after seeing those visions, the one for the the harvest bowing down to him, the brother's harvest bowing down to his, and the sun and the moon bowing down to him. When he was sharing this with his family, his brothers were jealous, sold him off to slavery, and then he was imprisoned. In prison, he still held on to God. He still held on to what he knew about God. And throughout the prison journey, God gave him success because of who God is, you know. So wherever we are, regardless of our environment, regardless of our circumstance, let us remember that God doesn't change. The God who promised us something great 5 years ago or 1 year ago is the same God who is with us even in this valley, even in this season where maybe we are going through loss, loss of a loved one, or loss of a job, or loss of a relationship, when we are going through harsh treatment, unfair treatment. The same God who was with us in the good times is the same God who's with us in the low times. And even in the times when things are happening to us, unfair things, unjust things, because life has its tragedies. I'm encouraged by Joseph's story in that I just need to remember who my master is. I just need to remember who my God is and who I owe my life to, who I owe my loyalty to. And I work on pleasing him, even even when I'm being attacked, or even when I'm going through a difficult season, even when I've made a mistake, regardless of the situation, I need to remember who I serve. And that remembrance then comes with a guidance on how I should behave. So you remember how in every situation Joseph was, from the prison to, well, from the slave camp to Potiphar's house to the prison to the palace, Joseph always behaved a certain way because of God. And it was not by his own efforts, it was that remembrance that God is who I serve, God is always with me. I need to please God. Gave him the confidence to choose a certain way of behaving, a certain way of living that was contrary to the popular culture, that was contrary to the office at the time, but God protected him. So then that remembrance of who I serve, and I remember that when I acknowledge God, God will grant me favor. He won't necessarily take me out of the prison, but he'll grant me the grace to survive the prison. He'll grant me the grace to serve a master who might not acknowledge him. He might grant me the grace to manage, for instance, manage my grief. He'll grant me the comfort to navigate this season of life. Um, and even when we are put under leadership, for instance, now in Joseph's example, Joseph has been sold as a slave. So at the moment, he has a slave master. God is the one who's appointing all these leaders over you. Just honor them to the extent that it doesn't interfere with your worship of God. So if you happen to be a slave, honor your slave master. Honor your master. If you happen to be an employee, honor your boss, regardless of how your boss is, because God appointed your boss over you. And that in itself should just give us a sense of humility and a sense of, you know what, Lord, if this is your plan for me right now, grant me the grace to obey, grant me the grace to be in servitude, even when I don't understand. And in that obedience, God will reward us. So, as a believer, I'm encouraged to do good regardless of the circumstance, of the person, of the situation. Just doing good because I remember who I am, who I am actually, period. I was trying to say who I belong to, because I am a child of God. I need to do good because God is my father. It's the family brand, if you get what I mean. So if your family brand is excellence, you need to be excellent regardless of the situation. Joseph also reminds me to be forgiving and to be merciful because he had to let his brothers go to be able to do good in the prison. He's not having fantasies that one day his brothers will come for him. He's already accepted his fate, that my brothers betrayed me and this is my new reality. So in this new reality, this is how I behave. And because I remember when Potiphar was accusing Joseph of rape, it really hurt Joseph because Joseph's sister Dinah was raped. And Joseph saw the implication of rape to a family, to a community. He saw the death that comes with rape. So for him, this accusation was so great, but he shouldered it. And that to me is just, you can really see the hand of God with this man, because some things are not human. Some things, it's not in your strength. And you know yourself as a human being that when it gets to this point, even forgiving becomes impossible. But he did. So I'm just training myself to align with God's will. I'm training myself to think of God first before my own reputation, before my name, before my pride, before my ego, because I am just like dust, here today, gone tomorrow, you know. But God remains. And the will of God then remains beyond my will. So it's more valuable to me if I align myself to God's will. It also taught me to uphold God's word beyond even the earthly punishments. So I would rather be imprisoned than speak ill of God or speak negatively of God. And now that I'm, walking in this path, I realize that it comes with a lot of challenges. It comes with a lot of hate. That, the church is this way, Christians are this way. And, you can't even speak so much because, you know, because you don't know. But one thing I'm just training myself is to just honor God, even if it means reputational risk, even if it means losing that which you perceive that you have. And I know that God is with us throughout this season. And this week, I'm just reflecting on Joseph's story. I keep confusing this great man's name. I'm reflecting on Joseph's story and how it comes to life, even in our day to day activities, in our workplace, in our families. And I'm encouraged that God will never leave us, God will never forsake us. And even when we are sent to the prison, God will help us prevail. Even when we're in the palace, God will help us prevail. God's grace is sufficient for us throughout all seasons of life, in all environments. We just need to acknowledge Him as our God. We just need to always call on to Him in every season, in every activity, and just ask Him to give us the enabling grace for that particular time and for that particular season. And as believers, remember that we're together in faith, and Christ has paid the ultimate price for us. So we are walking and living in the finished works of Christ. So we are not earning, we're not earning our salvation. We're not earning God's love. We are just simply obeying because it pleases God and because we love Him. So have a lovely week. I pray that the grace of God is sufficient for you in each and every circumstance that you're going through this week. Feel free to leave a comment, share this video with another believer who might need a word of encouragement, and let's keep each other in prayer. All right, bye.